It's Wednesday. We're halfway through the work week. The road to 270 is ahead. This is the Sean Spicer Show. Let's break down that map. All right, guys, here we are. It is Wednesday. As you know, this is our big day, road to 270. We've got just a couple more because we are down to 19 days. We're on a glide path to the weekend, as you know, but a lot to get to. And so many changes that I want to show you have even happened since the live Sunday show. A lot of new information. We've got some early voting, some new numbers, some new polls. I'll break it all down for you. A lot to get to. I want a couple other updates as well. Eric Hovde, he's in Wisconsin. We've talked a lot about Wisconsin. He's the Senate candidate there. Wisconsin's very difficult to poll. You've heard that from all of our pollsters. Friday, Eric Hovde's on the show. Plus, I've got a special guest. We talk about get out the vote, knocking on doors. We've got one of the people that is running the operation in a lot of states that's going to join us. Again, as you head into a weekend, you want to know what's happening. You want to be the most informed. This is where you're going to find out. So tomorrow, Thursday, is the panel discussion. We got a lot to break down, some new ads. Friday, you're going to have Eric Hovde here with one of the foremost experts on the ground game that is going to break it all down for us. So you're not going to want to miss it. Keep subscribing. I loved Newt Gingrich's conversation last night, by the way. I don't know how many people went out and binged Bridesmaids because of that. Anyway, let me get to a couple updates in just a second. Before I do that, I want to tell you about one of our great sponsors. I know a lot of you start the morning off with a cup of Joe. So I'm always pleased when I find a great company. Wire to Fish. Check out this coffee. If you are a big coffee drinker, you maybe even have an afternoon. I don't want to judge you if you're an afternoon kind of person, but you'll have a good cup of coffee, Arabica beans from Mexico and Guatemala. This is your cup of Joe. But here's the best part. Instead of going off to a place like, let's just say it's Starbucks, right? Or some of these other places, that you're basically giving them money to fund causes and people and issues that are contrary to our beliefs. Wire to Fish is great coffee, box checked, but more importantly, they give back 25% of their profits to faith-based programs and clean water initiatives, two things that I can get behind. So you're actually doing more than just getting a great cup of coffee with great beans sourced from great places. You're actually staying consistent with your values. I love that. And so the comments when you look at the people who have bought Wire to Fish all agree. I mean, this is awesome. It's not just my word. Like, look at the reviews. People are like, I love this coffee. It tastes great, and I feel good about drinking it. So head over to wire2fishcoffee.com. That's wire2fishcoffee.com and use code WECARE for 15% off your first order. All right, I'm going to show you a real quick chart that we'll put up that just shows you where the third-party candidates are on the ballot. And one of the things that you need to notice, because I'll mention this from time to time, sometimes it's important to have a visual, at least for me anyways, that's the way I learn. You'll see that Jill Stein is in every battleground state except for Nevada. We've talked about this. I'll bring it up again when we get to the state. It's because they sued to keep her off. But this is important because it shows you where these third parties make a difference. And when I talk about winning on the margins in a lot of these states, Michigan and whatever, we were coming down to tens of thousands of votes, right? Not a lot. These third parties can make a difference. And so when you see a head-to-head poll, it's important to know who's on what ballot. So Stein is on 6 of the 7 battleground states polls or ballots, not Nevada, okay, because the Dems kept her off there. Robert F. Kennedy still on Michigan and Wisconsin. You'll see Cornel West and the Libertarian candidate. And I mentioned the Libertarian candidate because in Georgia, that was the problem. But this gives you a much better sense of where the race stands. All right, I gave you an update. I want to give you an update on the story I told you about yesterday. So out of nowhere, this media personality, Tara Palmieri, she used to work for Politico. She now works for a web-based columnist kind of thing called Puck. And she did this profile piece with Mediaite. And in it, this is what they claim. I want to read from you the story. It said, during President Donald Trump's first term, Palmieri angered then White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer with her coverage of the White House, because she's horrible. Spicer refused to give her a press badge, which Palmieri said forced her to find creative ways to cover the administration. Keyword there, refused to give her a press badge. That's what Mediaite wrote, okay? This is her quote. I couldn't get a press credential when Spicer was the press secretary, she recalled. So I had to report from the outside, from the outer circle, and get in. Okay, so think about this. They're saying, I refused to give her a press credential. That's a direct quote from there. And then her quote is, so I couldn't get a press credential, so I just had to report from the outside. Okay, well, that's demonstrably false. I never denied anybody a press credential. In fact, we made it a point of pride to give everyone one. My attorney wrote to media yesterday saying this. But most damning of all, it's not just my word versus hers, because I know that it's not true. My staff at the time confirms that that's not true. But the reality is that she was dumb enough to post photos of her, 13 of them in the White House. Now, you need a press credential to get into the White House. She actually posted one of herself with the credential. Well, wait a second. She says in this quote, I couldn't get a press credential. This, as I mentioned yesterday, just shows you what happens in the media. 100% lie, right? Isn't it? I mean, that's her quote. Here's a photo of her in the White House with the press credential. Then there's several of them in the briefing room asking me questions, which you need a credential for. A patent lie. Mediaite's answer, of course, was, this is a PR stunt. We stand by the story. So you stand by the fact that you lied, because Mediaite said that Palmieri angered then White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer and refused to give her a badge. Well, they've seen the evidence now and, quote, stand by the story. So they are standing by the fact that they are pushing lies out, that they allowed this, quote, media personality, Tara Palmieri, to lie to them, and they're standing by it. Why? I say this to you not because it's me, but because it's emblematic of what happens right now in the media. They get caught lying. And what do? They double down and say, we stand by the story. How can you stand by something that is demonstrably false? There's photographic evidence that proves that that's not true, and yet you stand by the story. Anyway, I wanted to just share that with you so you understand what's going on in the media today. Palmieri lied. Mediaite stands by that lie. That's great. This is how they get away with this stuff. And by the way, they love to call out Donald Trump and everyone else for lying. This is the behavior that they exhibit. So I'll give you an update legally when we go for this. I can't believe this. I got to be honest. I at least expected them to do some weasel thing where it's like, we have updated the story, or we took the story down, or I mean, that's kind of what I assumed they would do, because it was like, wow, how can you stand by this? But this tells you where we are. All right. We are going to do the map and give you this updated thing. I want to explain to you how things have changed. We'll go through this real quick and then get to the battleground states. This is the time when you want to share this with friends. Hit that little share button down below and send a link to a bunch of people as this is happening so that they can be informed as to what's going on. Because as I've told you before, no one else is going to do this for you. No one else runs through the states. And so this is interesting, by the way. We talk a lot about the third parties. I mentioned the map to you of where they're on the ballot of this chart that I'm going to show you. The Harris campaign, they'll put an ad out. This is a quote. Together with the DNC, specifically warning progressives in Philadelphia and Milwaukee against voting for Jill Stein. A vote for Stein is really a vote for Trump, it intones. They're scared. They're telling you what I've been saying for a while now. Jill Stein is a threat to her winning. Obviously, they think that it's a problem in Wisconsin because they're targeting Milwaukee and Philadelphia. I'm surprised not Michigan as well, but maybe they've written off Michigan. But you can tell that they're worried as well. All right, I'm going to get to the map. Before I do that, I really want to tell you about Beam. I told you about Wire to Fish, right? That's how you get your day going. Well, let me tell you real quickly about Beam. I talk to you all the time about this. At the end of every day, when I'm about ready to go to bed, I've sort of started to put the show together for the next day. I'm like, okay, I need to unwind, go. I take a scoop of Beam's Dream Powder. I've been doing the cinnamon for a while. I'm actually ready to open the bag of the brownie mix. They're both like you. It's like which child you love more. They're both delicious. I put a scoop into a little bit of water, mix it up, put it in the microwave. I do 30 seconds because I just want it warm. Some people want it hotter. I've talked to some people who say I love doing it with milk. It doesn't matter. Whatever suits you. But I'm telling you, 30 minutes later, when you put your head on that pillow, you're out. It is a mix of all natural ingredients. melatonin, magnesium, reishi, I mean, all of the good stuff in one amazing to drink formula. And it's taken by athletes and professionals. If you're interested, go to shopbeam.com. Use code word Spicer. You will not regret this. I'm telling you, if you're someone who has a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep, go to shopbeam.com/Spicer. Use promo code Spicer for savings on your first order. You will love this stuff and thank me for it. All right, let's get to the map. I will start as we always do, and we're going to do this for the next couple Wednesdays going forward, but I'm just going to run through the easy states first, right? Because there's been some updates. I had a tier 2 section, as you know, moving a lot of those out of tier 2. They're not happening. So let's just start. And by the way, forgive me if my math is a little tweaky on this because I've been trying to move these states, but we're going to play like we've done before. We'll start with the Harris states. We'll move left to right and then north to south. We're going to start with Hawaii, as we always do. It's dark blue for Harris. She's going to get their electoral votes. She'll take Hawaii's 4. Let's start with there. And then we'll go north and west. Washington, the 12 go for Harris. Oregon, the 8 go for Harris. California's full 54 go for there. New Mexico, I've said this before, I thought it was a tier 2 state. I'm moving it to just regular now. The 5 electoral votes in New Mexico are going to go for Harris. There's no sign that the Trump campaign is contesting Mexico. New Mexico. I said, sorry. So we're going to put New Mexico's 5 in there. Let's move a little east, same as before, except I'm going to start with Minnesota. Again, I was keeping an eye on Minnesota. I'm now officially moving it away from tier 2 and pushing it back up because, again, no one is contesting Minnesota. One poll has her up a solid 10. Walz is campaigning there. There's no evidence for time or money being spent from Team Trump, and that's what matters. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not spending time or money, right, it's not going to matter. So we're going to move Minnesota and its 10 electoral votes into the Harris column for the first time this early. And I don't, like I said, if we see something change, she's over 50% there. He's in the low 40s. There's no evidence. So again, if you don't agree with this, you let me know. If you live in Minnesota, shoot me a note. Go to my website, SeanSpicer.com. There's a contact thing there. Obviously sign up for the newsletter, but go and let me know what you think, because I'm not seeing any evidence. The people I talk to on Team Trump are not putting any effort into Minnesota, and we're 19 days out. So if you're not doing it at this point, it's going to be hard. All right, let's keep going there. Colorado, the 10 electoral votes go into her column. Illinois, 19 go into her column as well. And then we actually now, as you know, we're going to kick it over to the Northeast. We'll start with Vermont. Those are 3 electoral votes. Another shift here. I am putting New Hampshire's 4 electoral votes in the dark blue column. I had shaded it light blue for a little while. I was waiting to see if Team Trump was going to make a move. No evidence there. Now, remember, New Hampshire's largely in the Boston media market. It's expensive, so you have to make a commitment. I know it's not big. It's 4 electoral votes, not massive. Not that they shouldn't try, but it's a big, if you're going to go for them, it's going to cost you, that Boston media market. And there's no evidence that they're doing that. They're not visiting it. Again, if things change, 19 days to go, because it's an easy shift. It's one big media market, right? You don't have to cover the states in the way that like another state, you might have to go 4 or 5 or 6 media markets. They could come in, buy the Boston media market, cover it heavily, do a couple visits in Nashua or Manchester, or whatever, and really resonate throughout the state. I just don't see it there. But Kelly Ayotte is running for governor. She's running as the Republican to replace Chris Sununu. So it's possible. If there was one of the states outside Virginia that I think is possible, this would be it. But for now, I'm putting New Hampshire's 4 electoral votes in her column. So there you go. All right, I hate to interrupt the conversation real quick, though, but I got to tell you about a great guy, a longtime supporter of the show, Mr. Leo Grillo. Leo is the founder of Delta Rescue. As you guys know, it is a no-kill sanctuary for life, not a shelter, not somewhere where they go to be rescued or adopted. Leo Grillo has made it a life's mission to care for adopted, neglected, malnutrition animals of all shapes and sizes, dogs, cats, horses, you name it. He takes care of them all. He founded Delta Rescue after rescuing one dog that he actually named Delta. And then he got this idea to do it for a lot more. And it has grown and grown and grown. If you go to deltarescue.org You check these videos out. They're inspiring because one guy with a mission and an idea has paid off big time. The thing, though, is that Leo's mission and vision can only continue through the help and support of people like you. So if you can go to deltarescue.org, check out the great work that he's doing. Look at how this has evolved and think about making a contribution because he doesn't take government money. This is something that Leo believes passionately in. If you're an animal lover, if you're the rescue of a dog or a cat or a horse or whatever, support Leo Grillo's great work. Go to deltarescue.org and then click on that estate planning kit up top and think if you can help make Delta Rescue an enduring mission and part of your legacy. Thanks for your consideration. Now back to the show. Now let's go to New York. That's 28 electoral votes in the Harris column, right? So again, we've always pointed this out, but think about this. You got California's 54, New York's 28, Illinois. I mean, it doesn't cover a lot of geography, but you get there, you start adding stuff up real quick. Anyway, let's move back through New England. Massachusetts has 11 electoral votes, solidly in the Harris campaign. Rhode Island's 4, solidly with Harris. Connecticut 7. I know there's a play for the 5th congressional district, which is down in the western kind of Stamford, Darien, Danbury area. That's great, but it's not going to affect the state. Those 7 electoral votes in Connecticut are going for her. And so I know we skipped Maine. Let's go back up to Maine quick because I think we've talked about this before. I wanted to maybe take a look at some more evidence in Maine. I'm still saying that she takes Maine statewide, right? So she's going to get the 2 Senate, the at-large electoral votes because she'll carry it, and then she'll get the 1st congressional district. So that gives her 3 of 4 out of Maine, and we'll get to the 2nd congressional district when we get to Trump. Maine and Nebraska, if you're watching this for the first time, are the 2 states that divide their electoral votes by congressional district. Maine has 2, so there's 2 congressional districts. The Republican has won the 2nd district, the last couple. And then Nebraska we'll talk about in a minute because it is a little different and unique, but I'm going to get to that when we get down a little bit further. We're done with New England for now, so let's move into the Mid-Atlantic. We've got New Jersey with 14 electoral votes, solidly in her camp, right? It's not a question. Delaware's 3. She's Karen Biden country, huh? But that's not a question. I mean, Delaware is pretty solid Democrat. Did have a Republican, Mike Castle, former governor who ran at large for the House, carried it for a while, but that's no longer the case. And it was a very unique situation. I don't think we would, even if Castle was still in Congress, we wouldn't carry the congressional district because it's a statewide district. So you either get all, because of that, you either get all 3 or none. Maryland's got 10 electoral votes. They go in the Harris column. DC is 3. I gave a speech last night in Virginia where I talked to a group of activists who are Trump supporters. And because they're in Northern Virginia, I reminded them my little speech on DC. You guys, if you've watched this before, you've heard it. But just remember, when the Democrats talk about voting rights for DC, it's a sham. They don't care about DC's voting rights. DC was formed as part of Virginia and part of Maryland. In the 1800s, they gave back the part of Virginia to Virginia. It's actually where I live. And if you fly into Reagan National Airport, that used to be part of DC. It used to be a perfect square. It no longer is. It kind of looks like this now, like a heart almost, kind of, not really, but because they gave back to Virginia because it wasn't being used. My whole view is, okay, well, if you really care about voting rights in DC, then give back the portion of Maryland and just carve out from the Capitol to the White House down the National Mall a federal district, which is what the framers wanted, right? No one lives on the National Mall, at least legally, and they don't have an address anyway. They could be homeless just camping out there. But the Democrats should give back to Maryland what was taken from Maryland if it's not being used, and it's not. It gives them a vote. It gives Maryland should be very happy. That's more voters. It's probably another congressional district. But the reason that Democrats don't want this to happen and, in fact, want to make D.C. a state is because they would get 2 United States senators. D.C. votes 95-5, so it's a given. And that would, increase their power in the Senate. I don't know that Republicans would have a hard time getting a majority for a while because think about recent history. You barely ever get above 2-seat majority. So the Democrats know exactly what they're doing. This is not about voting rights. Always question what the Democrats' motive is. Think about it. On immigration, why are they suing Virginia for taking non-citizens off the roll? Why did they leave the border open? It's because they want more voters. There's always a motive with Democrats. DC, it's not about voting rights. It's about more power. It's about 2 senators. Always question what they're doing and why. Because on face value, it always sounds nice and fluffy. Voting rights. It's not true. Anyway, I digress. All right. The one last thing I want to talk about, and I got a message from Dan the other day through my website, SeanSpicer.com, and he said, why aren't you talking more about Nebraska too? I'd like to talk about Nebraska too a little bit more. There was a story in Politico. Let me just read this for you. Don Bacon is the congressman that represents Omaha. And so you say to yourself, Nebraska too was won by Trump in 2016. It is represented by a Republican. It has a, they call it the partisan index +3 for Republicans. It was made more Republican in redistricting. This should be ripe for taking. I agree. But the Trump campaign, let me just read you the Politico story that just came out on this. Bacon ruefully acknowledged as much in a chat with reporters after Ashford spoke. I frankly think our district has been an R+3 district, Bacon said. If you're a reasonable conservative that likes to govern, if you're not, that's where the numbers are going. Bacon, for instance, outran his party by 8 points in the Democratic wave of 2018. In 2020, Biden won the district by more than 6 points and Bacon by more than 4. So this is a district, Dan, who wrote me here. I get it. I don't know why more attention's not being paid. It is ripe for the plucking. Registered Republicans outnumber registered Democrats here by about 38 to 35%, with much of the remainder officially nonpartisan. Omaha has a Republican mayor. The city council is almost evenly divided. It has not been reliably Democratic in presidential years since going back to 2008. In other words, it should not be a slam dunk for Harris, but that's how it's shaping up. That's from Politico. Okay, but let me just read you a little bit more about what's going on. The reasons are a mix for both national and Nebraska-specific factors, including the general Harris polling bump over Biden numbers in the battlegrounds. Trump was being wildly outspent in the district as much as 18 to 1. The Democrats, they believe that they need this district, right? So they're putting a ton of money in it, according to Bacon. Although he did not make explicit the implication that Trump was not running a good race, he did acknowledge that it's an uphill battle here. That's the point. They're not spending there. The Democrats, 18 to 1. The Trump Force One team in Nebraska 2 is 4 full-time staffers, 2 the typical campaign duties, door knocking and phone banking, and 2 for the poll worker poll watching training program, a setup that reflects Trump's stated priorities. Nebraska GOP reinforcements pushed the team up to around a dozen people. By comparison, the joint Harris-Nebraska Democrat team has 25 full-time paid employees in the district working for Harris. Their theory of victory is that Biden won the district by about 22,000 votes, that in combination with other Trump people. So I'm telling you, you look at where Deb Fischer, the incumbent Republican senator, is right now, and in an internal poll for Dan Osborne, the Democrat, he's the independent, they don't have a Democrat technically running, leading in the Senate race. The independent showing that he is beating her 50 to 44. There's something going on in Nebraska. And this is why I don't think the Trump team, they're seeing the same thing in the data. So to answer your question, I think they've looked at it, they've looked at the data, and they're just not seeing it. For that reason, Nebraska 2, that one district in the Omaha area, goes for Harris. I hope and wish things change. That could be important down the stretch. That one electoral vote could be critical, but we're going to put that for now in the Harris column. I caution you on this because I get it. I saw Dan's email come through to SeanSpicer.com. And he's like, why aren't you talking more about this? I continue to research it. I've talked to people. Again, the Harris campaign has made it a priority. They're spending a ton of money, putting a ton of people there. And the Trump team is doing its door knocking. They're getting it out. They still feel good about the volunteer program. But you're not seeing the money, which is a problem. And you're not seeing Trump or his team visit Nebraska too. If this came down to a 269 tie or a 270 to 268, you're going to hear about this for a long time afterwards. But I appreciate the note, Dan. Did some research. I hope that helps to answer it. I can't force them to go, as you know, but I can explain to you what's happening there and the dynamic that's happening. But it's not just Trump. Deb Fischer's in big trouble there. The Republican incumbent senator. I think she ultimately pulls it out. But this is too close for comfort. And the thing is, like I said, this guy, Dan Osborne, he's not a Democrat. They ran an independent the Democrats got behind. Kind of cute. Anyway, let's start with the other side. They go back to the West Coast, put in the Trump numbers. I will start with Alaska so I don't forget our 2 new states. I started with Hawaii the last time, so let's start with Alaska, put those 3 votes in there. You've heard me talk about this before. If it did come down to a tie, 269, every state in the House gets 1 vote. In the new Congress, after they get seated, right? They get seated January 5th. The new House would vote after that. And then the new Senate would vote for vice president. Well, think about this. Alaska currently represented by Mary Peltola. She is a Democrat that won through ranked choice voting. Nick Bisich was on the show not too long ago. He is the Republican nominee. And here's the kicker. The ranked choice voting helps the Democrat right now, Mary Peltola. Because the other Republicans have dropped out, Nick Bisich is in a much better place. I think he is going to win this thing. That's important because God forbid we came down to a 269 tie. Under the current scenario, Mary Peltola, the Democrat, would cast a ballot for Kamala Harris. Alaska would cast its ballot for Donald Trump if Nick Bisich was the winner. So we need that. It's important on election night to watch Alaska. God forbid it comes out close, because all states get 1 vote. California gets 1 vote. New York gets 1 vote. Alaska gets 1 vote. So every state getting more of a House majority for Republicans is important for that. Anyway, I digress, but just telling you why Alaska is important if you're wondering why we spend a ton of time talking about it. If we get to a tie, that helps us big. So let's go northwest down. Montana, 4 electoral votes for Trump. Idaho's got 4. That goes for Trump. Wyoming's got 3. That goes for Trump. No changes. I mean, right, we're still sailing pretty good where we are. Let's go back up north and move south. The Dakotas, North Dakota's got 3 electoral votes, 2 senators, 1 member of Congress. That's 3. They go for Trump. South Dakota, same makeup, 2 senators, 1 at-large member of Congress, 3 electoral votes. They go for Trump. So that's kind of cute. Both Dakotas have 3. They both go for Trump. Nebraska, this is where we were a moment ago. We talked about the Omaha district. Nebraska, Maine has 4 electoral votes, right? 2 senators, 2 House districts. As I said, the first district, pretty solid Dem. It's not impossible. But the second one, I think we're good on for Republicans. That goes to Trump. And the rest of the state would go to Harris. But in Nebraska, it's got 5 electoral votes because it has 3 congressional districts. We talk about this. The second district is that one around Omaha. They call it the blue dot in Nebraska. And so the rest of the state, the 2 at large and the other 2 congressional districts will go for Trump. 4 out of the 5 electoral votes go to Trump. So there you go. We added 4 to him there. Okay. Kansas has 6 electoral votes. They go to Trump. Oklahoma's 7 go to Trump. Texas, there we go. This finally gets some nice numbers up here if you're a Republican. Those 40 go to Trump. I will tell you, I am keeping an eye on the Senate race between Ted Cruz and Colin Elrod. This is way too close for comfort. The cavalry is coming in from Washington, spending a lot of money going after Colin Elrod right now. But I'm telling you, this is way too close for comfort in this Senate race. I think Cruz will end up being okay, but just remember, Texas is evolving. It is not the ruby red state that it once was. And so let's look at that territory that we always pause at this point. You see the number of states that Harris has, how much ground Team Trump has, the red, all that red, and it's 78 electoral votes, including Texas, right? Pretty amazing when you stop every once in a while and think of all the ground that's covered in our country for the Republican that are Trump supporting. And yet, because the Democrats get these big cities and these enclaves, California, New York, Illinois, they rack up electoral votes quick. All right, let's go back up north and come straight down. No changes in any of these states. Iowa, 6 electoral votes go to Trump. Missouri has 10, they go to Trump. Arkansas's 6 go to Trump. And Louisiana's 8 go to Trump. Let's go back up north and head south again. Indiana's 11 go to Trump. I don't think anyone's questioning that. Kentucky's 8 solidly in Trump campaign. Tennessee has 11. They go to Trump. Mississippi's 6 go to Trump. And Alabama's 9 go to Trump. Look at that red, but we're still only at 153 right now. So let me just see. Oh, by the way, I missed Utah. That's my bad. I knew there was a number missing. So if we go back out west real quick, hit that Utah number and plug it in, that gets us back to where we should be. All right, let's go back up and down. Ohio 17, go to Trump. West Virginia has 4. This is a state that's not a problem for Trump. He won wildly, but remember, Joe Manchin, the senator, is retiring. Jim Justice, the current Republican governor, running to replace him. That's a gimme. The nice thing is, as long as we can hold Ted Cruz in the Senate, Deb Fischer in the Senate, and Rick Scott in Florida in the Senate, if they hold, then that flip going from Joe Manchin, a Democrat, to Jim Justice, a Republican in West Virginia, gets Republican at least to 50, which is great because I think then we build going forward. So that's a solid thing. All right. South Carolina is at 9 electoral votes. Those go solidly in the Trump column. And then Florida's 30 can go into the Trump column. Now, keep in mind, we had Robert Cahaly on just a little while ago. I think we're good because of the storm. I was very concerned about the damage that was going to be done because of these 2 hurricanes. But so far, it seems like Governor DeSantis and the municipalities down in Florida have done a phenomenal job of getting most people back up online. I know there's some people still without power. They're working hard to get them back on, but we're 19 days out. I don't see the impact there that I do in some of the other states we'll talk about in just a second. But that was a concern for at least a little while as far as how the storms might impact the ability of people to vote. All right. By the way, I mentioned Maine. I just want to make sure we did put Maine 2. Yes, we did, in the Trump box. So let's just take a look at the map real quick. Because I believe, let's just pull it out for a second so you guys can play along with me. I think we're at 219, 213, with 106 outstanding. Wow, my math, God, not bad for a guy who didn't take math in college, huh? So this is going to be it. I will say this. I'm ready to almost put the Virginia column. Let's paint this light blue. Virginia, I'm going to give to her. I've talked about this for a while. She is still ahead. The last 3 polls have her 11, 8, and 3. The Real Clear Politics average has her at 6.4. Biden won this by 10. I know I want this because I live here. I know Team Trump's keeping an eye on it. I know they're doing a ton of volunteer stuff. I get the alerts because I live here of all the activity that's going on, particularly in Northern Virginia. Katie Gorka, who is Seb's wife, is chairman of the Fairfax Republicans, doing phenomenal work, getting people organized out to vote. And remember, we carried all the statewide offices in the off cycle. Glenn Youngkin, Winsome Sears as Lieutenant Governor, Jason Myers swept everything because I think people went out there and worked hard. I've talked to a ton of folks. Everybody's working hard, and I think that there's an opportunity to get there if we keep working hard. So we've got, I think, in a good place. I'm willing to keep that on the tier 2, but I need some more. I need to see more in the next week. We're 19 days out, and we're not there yet that I'm willing to say unequivocally that it's written off, but I do get the sense that we're getting close. So, FYI, keep an eye on Virginia. I'll give it another week, but if you're not seeing some serious movement by the time we do this again next Wednesday, I'm going to have to move it into the blue column. I'm not saying it can't be come back from. I talked to a lot of folks who are working real hard in Virginia. I'd love to see it go. I'd love to retire the title of the last elector in Virginia, but we're not there yet. Okay, let's get down to the battleground states. Let's start with Arizona. Okay, we heard a lot about this on Sunday night. Currently, Trump is up 1.1 points on the Real Clear Politics average, 48.4 to Harris's 47.3. So Trafalgar has him just out with +2. The New York Times had him +7. +5. Siena had him up 2. This is a great trend. And if you look at the voter registration trend, we've been talking about this, all these counties, are great. Our Seth Keshel, who has a great Substack newsletter, talks about voter reg trends. And he wrote, we talked about this Sunday night, that you will see all 15 counties are either more Republican in party registration than they were in 2020 or less Democrat. 2 counties, both of which ironically have a long history of voting Republican in federal elections, Navajo and Yuma, formally flipped into GOP registration advantage, largely on the strength of Latino and Native American party switcher. That's what I think is fascinating, right? It's not an increase in whites or professionals. It's the Native American and Latinos where we're seeing the shift. And we heard about this the other night on the Sunday Live program, that, this is what's driving this, the Latino population. The registration is moving in all of these directions. Republicans now have a 3-point registration advantage. They did back then, and now it's 6%. These first-time voters should end up with Trump. So I feel good about this. And nothing in Arizona is giving me worry. But they do have abortion on the ballot in Arizona. That is a bit of a concern. They're trying to get their folks ginned up and turned out. So keep that in mind. And abortion, according to a story that just came out this week, has passed inflation as the top issue for women under 30, according to a brand new survey. So I believe Democrats are doing everything they can. You heard Trump, if you listen to him during that economic speech that he gave in Chicago yesterday, saying he thinks that they're going to give up on Arizona. I wouldn't be so sure of that just yet, but I will tell you that I hear a lot of positive things coming out of Arizona on behalf of their team. And look, Trump has never trailed in the Real Clear Politics average. That's a positive thing for Trump. So let's put those electoral votes in the Trump column. 11 electoral votes in the Trump column, and we'll go there. All right, I'm going to move to Georgia. Early vote starts this week in Georgia. It started yesterday. I'm not sure. Look, one day of early vote does not scare me, but let me just walk you through this. The early vote in mail on day one, 328,611 people cast their ballot yesterday. That is a record by a lot for the first day of early voting. According to the people who break this all down, there were 98,000 ballots. Black, white voters were 189,015. I don't know how they figured that out. But someone told me that demographic is beneficial to some degree. When you look at the counties, DeKalb, Fulton, and Gwinnett, 103 came out of there, but 203,000 came out of mostly rural counties. So, which is a lot more than they normally get. I wish I could say I knew more about, like, everyone's trying to read the tea leaves and tell you what this means. It's, obviously you can't look at someone's ballot. Well, legally. I'm kidding. And so I don't know what to make. Democrats love to vote early. Republicans are making a big push, and at some point, it's going to come through, so you've got to figure out. But this is a big number for day one. I would love to see the gender breakdown because, and also, remember, if you're banking what we call high propensity voters, somebody who votes 4 out of 4 times, that's fine because they would have voted anyway. There's a lot more that matters, and we'll get more data. By the time we do this again in a week, we'll know a lot more about early vote than we do. So keep an eye on this. Brian Kemp, the governor, by the way, announcing his whole team is all in to help Trump. This is a big deal, by the way, I think, because the Kemp machine, he needs a victory. Brian Kemp, even if it's the most selfish reasons, he wants to deliver Georgia for Trump for his own personal reasons. That's a positive thing, guys. We want him to get a victory. I mean, if he can put Trump over the top, that's great. It shows that his machine. So he's got the machine out there doing everything he can. Keep that in mind, though. I feel good about that for those reasons. All right. So I'm putting Georgia in the red column. I feel good about it. But actually, let's do this. I want to put it in the light red just because that early vote number does give me some pause. I'm sorry to shift this up. It's still red, but I want to see another week of data. When we gather back here in a week, I want to know where we are in terms of the early vote and how much more data we can glean. It does give me a little bit of concern because it's that high. So I'm kind of like the doctor that's saying, let's just monitor this, and then you come back in a week. Let's move over to North Carolina. 16 electoral votes there. Trump's got a 1.4 Real Clear Politics polling average. Last couple polls, up 5, up 2, up 1. Look at that trend. Harris has not let in anything in forever. I mean, the last poll that I have her is mid-September. Everything else is Trump, 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 tie, tie. And it kind of, the trend went away from her. Haley was telling us the other day, be careful of new public polling because people aren't answering their phones. This is where I think the storm is the X factor. All factors being, everything else, Trump wins North Carolina. I'm going to shade this light red because of the storm. I'm concerned about it. So just keep an eye on that. And we've had a lot of people move in during COVID since the last election. We're going to have to start to see that. All right, we move on to Nevada. I was very, very excited on the Sunday Night Live to hear about what's going on in Nevada, the registration movement, how this is happening, what they've done since COVID. Trump's up 5 for the first time that I remember him being up, and it's slowly started to move his way. We heard about the ground game here. You remember the last time I started to shade this blue. I'm willing to shade this. I'm going back to, let's do this. I went blue last time. I'll move it to toss up for now, right? We'll keep this as a toss up, the 6 electoral votes, only because I had it blue last time. I'm trying to get it to red, okay? I think it's trending that way, but we got a little time, and like anything else, let's let it move over to red slowly. It's 6 electoral votes, right? So even if we awarded him to Trump right now, he'd still be too short. So let's not freak out about this. All right, so I'm doing that. By the way, that race in the Senate, Jackie Rosen is still up 7 points, 49.6 to 42.6 over Sam Brown there on that Senate race. So keep that in mind. All right, let's move to our blue wall states. Wisconsin is next up. I have Harris. This is literally a jump ball. Harris is up 0.3. Okay, the last 3 were polls were literally dead even ties. Then Trump was up 2, her up 2. It's tightening. It's very tough to pull. As I mentioned, Eric Hovde is going to be here on Friday. I'm going to get his take on where the race stands, where the momentum is, how the ground game is. You're not going to want to miss this because Wisconsin could be crucial, right? Look at this. You pop that into the Trump column, we got to win right off. Boom. So you're going to want to hear that conversation on Friday. You heard on Sunday that absentee ballot requests are not coming in at what levels that they were last time. That is a good thing for us, okay? Don't mistake that. That is good because Dems tend to vote a lot more early. And so if you're not seeing the ballot requests, never mind the returns, that's good for us. There's a Senate race there. Baldwin is still up over Hovde 49-46, but it's moving in the right direction. And she's telling donors that she's scared. Again, tune into that conversation with Eric Hovde on Friday. Let's get to Michigan's 15 electoral votes. Trump is up 0.9 here. This is 48.5 to Harris at 47.6. But look at the trend. The public polling continues to go in Trump's direction. It is amazing. The trend is great. We heard about the Get Out the Vote effort. America First Works talking about having Muslim-speaking door knockers in the state since June. We talked about this the other day. Harris, there's an AARP poll that just came out, found her tied with Trump there. And this is what they write in Politico. Her struggles in the state stem partly from weakness with black voters in Detroit, where they report that local Democrats think the campaign is lacking. Okay. Plus, the Michigan Firefighters Union skips endorsing her in another blow to Harris, according to Politico. The Harris campaigns were hoping that they would back her after the largest IAFF, that was the firefighters' big association, snubbed her earlier this year. We've read about what's going on. The Arab American PAC, for the first time in 2 decades, not endorsing anybody. That's a big deal. I feel very good about this. Slotkin is up by 2.3% over former Congressman Mike Rogers, but I like where this is trending. I feel good about Michigan, so I'm going to put both Michigan and Wisconsin in the light red column just because I like the way they're trending. We'll get an update from Eric Hovde on Friday. And then last, all things come down to Pennsylvania. You heard about everything that's going on Sunday night. That Butler rally was great. Trump right now a slight edge, 0.2%. This is all of the marbles, but look at where we are. Let's put Pennsylvania in the Trump column right now because they're freaking out. There's a story out literally this morning from the Harris campaign, quoting on the record sources. They're infighting. They're saying she's not doing enough to get out the vote in Philadelphia. If you're this freaked out 19 days out in Pennsylvania, that's not a good thing. She's upset so many people. She's not Joe, right? I mean, think about it. Joe was Scranton Joe. He had a connection. He visited there like 5 times a week. And she doesn't come there as much. She spent a lot of time in Western PA, ironically. But I'm telling you, Pennsylvania, I think, is a problem. Let's look at the map where we are now. I mean, with the exception of Nevada, right? Look at where Trump is. We pull that back out for just a sec. I want to show you, this is good news for Trump. We're back at 306. This is where I said it was. Take a look, by the way, at the Daily Mail. I want to put this on. Put Nevada in the Trump column, and then look at what the Daily Mail said. It's picture perfect to what we laid out, right? They're actually looking and coming up with the same that we are, 312, 326. The beautiful thing about the map that I have laid out right now, Trump wins 312, 226. But you can take any one of those states off the board from Trump. You can probably take 2. He still is over 270. This is good news for Donald Trump. Heading into the final 19 days, Trump has a solid win. A lot's moving on the board, a lot of moving parts. Early voting started. We're going to have an update next week to show you the latest polling, the trends, the early vote, where things have moved. So don't miss out. Always hit that notification button and that subscription button, which is why you'll know where the race stands in the final days. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.